And on this Sunday morning, churches across America at a bit of a crossroads after President Trump called for houses of worship to be allowed to reopen. But this question, even if services are held, will people fill the pews? ABC's Rachel Scott is on that story from Washington. Rachel, good morning to you.
Dan, good morning. The president said he wants to see places of prayer open immediately. But this morning, religious leaders are weighing the call to worship in person against the risk of the coronavirus. This morning, the president's demand to reopen places of worship sparking praise and outrage.
We would like to thank our president today.
We don't have to gather in a building to be the church. We can gather virtually.
For the first time in weeks, Solid Rock Baptist Church in New Jersey will open its doors for Sunday service, defying state orders.
We will do things safely, sanitized, and using social distancing.
President Trump calling on governors to allow churches, synagogues, and mosques to hold in-person services this weekend.
The governors need to do the right thing and allow these very important, essential places of faith to open right now. If they don't do it, I will override the governors.
It's unclear whether President Trump has the authority to do so. The CDC recently posted this graphic on Twitter, showing how 2 people with the virus infected at least 35 others at a church gathering in Arkansas back in March. Now some religious leaders saying returning to worship in person could cost lives.
What's at risk is probably doing a bunch of funerals. What's at risk is a bunch of folk winding up in the hospital. What's at risk are children losing parents and grandparents.
With the coronavirus ravaging minority communities, black congregations are still reeling from losses. Bishop Douglas Wiley tested positive for COVID-19 himself.
Rather than rushing back into a building, I think we need to take into account all of the factors, medical, social, economic.
Tensions running high in some states. In California, more than 1,200 pastors say they plan to resume church with or without the state's permission on May 31st.
As you can see, our sanctuary is empty.
This weekend, virtual services will continue to connect religious communities. Muslims are marking the end of Ramadan without coming together. Now, religious services gathering in person will look a lot different. New CDC guidelines are encouraging leaders to hold worship outside if possible and even limit singing because it may contribute to the transmission of the virus. Dr. Deborah Birx on the White House's coronavirus task force says some areas with a high number of coronavirus cases may still have to hold off. Whit?
Many people heading out to church for the first time this morning in a while. Rachel, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We do want to bring in our medical contributor, Dr. Todd Ellerin, for some ideas on how you and your family can stay safe from the virus this weekend. Dr. Ellerin, thanks so much for joining us. I want to start with churches because this is a big test. The first holiday weekend in this season of reopening, you could call it. President Trump basically deemed churches essential across the country. They are starting to reopen to some degree. What can people do as they head out to worship today to protect themselves and their families?
Yes, good morning, Whit. So it's important to recognize there have been outbreaks that have started in places of worship, so we have to take this seriously. If you can do the services outside where there's better ventilation, less likely to spread. If you're inside, perhaps limiting the number of congregants, maybe every other pew, and other things like the universal masking. Masking definitely decreases transmission, and try to avoid singing, at least in this first phase, because that may make the droplets go further than 6 feet.
What about things like heading out to the beaches? We've seen the images of packed beaches, backyard barbecues, obviously a Memorial Day pastime. Is it still possible to gather with friends and family in a safe way?
It is. We've heard this term quarantining, T-E-A-M. So when you have the people in your bubble, you can stay within 6 feet. But, when you have other people gathering that aren't in your bubble, that's when you really want to make sure you have your mask, make sure that your seats are more than 6 feet away from other people, and good hand washing, obviously frequent sanitizing of the bathrooms, the shower pavilions. Those are very important. But the same principles that have kept us safe inside, we're more likely to be even safer outside because the virus, with ultraviolet radiation and the humidity, less likely to spread.
And now more than ever, the pandemic, it's really up to individuals to be responsible as they head outside. Dr. Ellerin, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here. to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.